That's not the standard for the certificate of appropriateness.
Right.
That is not the standard at all. That is not
No,
the
it's
standard
not
for
our-
certificate of appropriateness. There's certain historical things that they must look at for the certificate of appropriateness. Has nothing to do with what you just discussed. Nothing at all. Okay.
All right, it's,
Hey,
no,
Mr.
it's-
All right,
Turl,
we can agree to disagree.
can Mr., would you like to speak now?
Well, we need to be sworn in if he's going to speak.
He did.
He was.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see.
No problem. Mike Turl, 9930 Forest Lake Drive. I wasn't even planning on speaking tonight. Most of you know I stepped away from it due to personal reasons and time constraints, and the ball has kept rolling here. What I've gotten out of this tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of this, first of all, we just built a new house. We've been in for 5 years, and I know the hoops that I had to jump through to build my house. I had to bring all the utilities down the street. I couldn't stick a shovel in the dirt until I had sewer plans for my laterals and all kinds of stuff. I started the whole process in February of '07, didn't even break ground until November. I was, 9 months, 10 months before I could do anything, going through all these processes to make sure everything was in proper order before I got my building permit to start work. What I understand of this, and I may be wrong, it says, and this is this flow chart, which may or may not be law. We don't know. I'm just going on what I've gathered tonight here. But first, the confusion, I believe, here on a lot of people's part is the application and permit are two different things. First, you apply for the building permit. You apply, and then it goes to either the building commission or the architectural review board. If it's a historical building, it goes to the architectural review board. That's correct? So let's just go along those lines right now. So we make an application, goes to the architectural review board, and then it's hammered back and forth, and then the certificate of appropriateness is granted or denied. So then the application, architectural review board, and then the certificate of appropriateness, which is basically the building permit. And then, after that, then the demolition is granted. The certificate of appropriateness is essentially not the demolition permit, but it's the building permit. It's the equivalent within the ARB. And there has to be an application, because I know I had to make applications before I could do anything, before I was granted this building permit to build my house. I had all kinds of applications and stuff. I had a lot of stuff that I had to submit to the city that had to be approved. I couldn't go out there and just start digging a hole in the ground and putting up a house without a permit. I had to show that this is how I'm going to do my sewer laterals. This is how I'm going to bring all my electric down the street. I had $20,000 in the dirt before I got up to my driveway so I could turn the lights on and flush a toilet. And all these steps had to be followed before I was, okay, everything is on paper. This is how it's all going to go together. This is what it's going to look like. Okay, Mr. Turl, here's your building permit. Start building. It's the dead of winter, but go for it. Whether or not these steps were followed, I've been kind of out on a loop of a lot of the stuff that's been going on here, but this is what I'm understanding in the hour and 15 minutes we've been talking, is that there's an application and then a review, and then the architectural review board approves the certificate of appropriateness. Is that the step? Where I'm seeing the confusion from the last row there is the application to the actual permit. The application and the permit are two different things. The application seems like it's gotten skipped out. If there is the application, that seems to be the contention from the committee here, that there was no application made, that step was skipped, and it went right to the certificate of appropriateness. So then if I came in there and I said to the city, I want to build a house, I want a building permit, well, where's all your blueprints and your sewer laterals and everything? Oh, I'll get that to you later. Okay, here you go, start. That's not going to fly. That's not the proper procedure. I just wanted to make that clarification, that the application and the certificate are two different things. That's what seems to be getting confused here between the people. That's all I got. Thank you.
Can I ask, excuse me, can I ask if council is confused on this process?
No,
I don't
not
think
at
I'm
all.
confused.
Anybody from council?
No, we're,
No.
To be confusion between the conversations that
Mike-
I was picking up.
Well, did
We're
you
good.
hear what Mr. Yates, I think?
Okay, let me just read the
Yeah.
intent of the Architectural Review Board. This
Wait.
might clarify something.
The intent of the Architectural Review Board, the purpose of these regulations is to enhance a distinctive historic character of Twinsburg, safeguard the integrity. I'm not going to go through all that, but safeguard the integrity, protect the historic district, encourage development of vacant properties. Then it goes says applicability of regulations, definition. The provisions shall be applicable to all properties and all buildings having historic significance and properties in proximity. If you don't have a site plan, you don't know what you're going to do to the next door neighbor's property. A, historic significance shall be considered with respect to intrinsic and subject property, embodies the distinguishing characters, is representative of the work. We've gone through all that, which should be the applicant should be answering, yes, it's significant. Proximity shall be considered in terms of the potential for one property by virtue of its location. If you don't know a site plan, you don't know what it's going to do to the proximity of the next property. Of particular relevance are the effects of the property values. And it goes on and on. The historic district, the reason the ARB looked at it is they said, oh yes, we see the school here, we see a house there, another one here, and the bank there. Now if you tear that building down, what plans do you have for that site? Is it going to affect the house next door? That's why the ARB, that's their duty, to review what's going to happen to that site. We can argue all the time we want. I say the application, and clearly 3 times in our law says, the application shall be submitted to the building department, and promptly he shall refer it to the ARB board. For what? To look and see what the future of that site is going to do to that proximity of the properties. That's it. So we're done. I'm done. I don't know about anybody else. If there's confusion, it's because the confusion is we have not followed the law. Had we followed it and you followed the procedure, you would see that, and like I said, whether the building comes down or not at this point, that's not the argument. The argument or the discussion is, if you feel after the ARB says, yeah, tear it down, it won't affect the house next door, it won't affect the bank, fine. But you have to have a plan to be able to say that.
Okay, do we have any other speakers?
How old it is, what's
Want anyone else wanting to speak? Okay. I think we're done. Any,
right, exactly.
It has nothing to do with future site.
do we have anything else anybody would like to add?
Mr. Mason, what's the process at this point?
I got it.
I'm sorry?
What's the process at this point? If we choose to overturn the ARB, someone needs to make a motion, have it seconded and voted upon, and passed with a 2/3 majority.
Right.
And if nobody makes that motion at this hearing, then the ARB's decision stands with the certificate of compliance, or excuse me, appropriateness. And
I mean, I think these folks have come, they made their presentation, they made their argument, they raised the issues that they wanted to raise for the appeal, and council's had an opportunity to hear that and has certainly given them an opportunity to be heard. I think it would be appropriate for council to act rather than to simply not act.
Right.
So I would ask council to make a motion to address the issue that's been presented tonight.
Okay.
And I would just like to mention that the Architectural Review Board had a duty to review certain criteria to make that determination. That's exactly what they stuck to, was the criteria that as it applied to the Certificate of Appropriateness.
Do you have that criteria? Other than an agreement from the CIC that will allow them to participate? That's what your exhibit says.
I have the criteria. I don't know if we need to rehash
No, we
that.
don't need to rehash that.
We know what it is.
Okay.
I make a motion that
Hang on, there's
Bill.
something you wanted me to read. Okay, all right, so having heard from all the interested parties and having heard and considered the reasoning and conclusions of the ARB, the following has been demonstrated. 1, the city of Twinsburg filed an application for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the structure located at 8997 Darrow Road. 2, the ARB denied the certificate of appropriateness on September 5th, 2013. 3, on October 7th, 2013, November 19th, 2013, and December 12th, 2013, the ARB and the city officials conducted meetings to to compromise as required by 1170-13 of the City Code. On December 12th, 2013, the ARB granted their certificate of appropriateness with conditions. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to overturn the December 12th, 2013 decision of the ARB, of the Architectural Review Board, granting their certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the structure at 8997 Darrow Road.
I'll second
Is
that.
there a second? There's a second. Okay, I made the motion. It was seconded by Mr. Sorese. Any discussion?
Yes, when I look at 134907, Section F, under Certificate of Appropriateness, it says that applicants must obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Twinsburg Architecture Review Board prior to the granting of a demolition permit. And then it references 1170.11. The way I interpret this, the way I've asked the law director to help me interpret this, is that in order to move forward down the steps, we needed to go through the process of getting a certificate of appropriateness with the ARB, and we've done that. And I don't, nothing tonight has made me think that that wasn't correct.
Okay. Agree, anyone else?
Yeah, I've made it clear before that I thought this should have been handled in a different way from the beginning. I don't see fault in what the city did. And the Architectural Review Board, in reversing themselves, had every right to do that upon appeal. But I just wish it would have been handled differently from the beginning, as I wanted to, going back almost a year, but it's too late for that.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to clarify that the motion, the way I understood, the motion that's been made is a motion to overturn the ARB. So a yes vote would be yes to overturn the ARB, no to not overturn the ARB.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stoffer,
No.
Mr. Sorese,
Yes.
Mr. Roden,
No.
Mr. Fury,
No.
Mr. Scafidi,
No.
Mr. McDermott,
No.
Mr. Yates.
No.
Okay. It's,
Motion
the
failed.
motion failed, 6-1.
No other business?
No other business? Anything else?
You're not allowed to want a special meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry then. Apologize. At this, okay. This time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
Meeting adjourned.
All in favor?
Yes.
Oh,